Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wrestle YouTube channel. It's time to review all the action from last night's Survivor Series War Games. It was a fantastic evening of entertainment, especially if you are a big wrestling fan, especially if you're a WWE wrestling fan. I am your host, the Egyptian Death Machine, Aeron. Joining me after the world's longest hiatus again, finally back from his incredible drowning of Pussy Lake, is of course the Maple Leaf Magician, the Duke of Diabetes, the man who has more insulin than Kenny Omega, more respect than Kenny Omega, more self-esteem than Kenny Omega, more fighting ability than Kenny Omega, more promo abilities than Kenny Omega. It's just generally a better Canadian in every sense. In fact, at this point, Kenny Omega should not be classified as a Canadian because he is a gigantic pussy-o. It is, of course, Kyle the Cleaner Wilkinson.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't enjoy biting people.
Right, that's a proper dick move, isn't it? That's a
Yeah,
proper
like,
bitch. But this is a country that settles their differences on ice, and he's biting people. Get in the bin.
nah, garbage. If we gotta throw down on the ice, I'm a cross check you or something.
Exactly. Exactly. Speaking of throwing down, WWE Survivor Series War Games, the first main roster War Games edition, obviously, since NXT had picked up the concept a few years ago. And the show opens with War Games, the women's War Games, as we all kind of
Ooh,
suspected. An absolute screamer. Do you know what? It almost feels like the women have upped their game ever since AEW. Oh wait, no, that's not a thing. Sorry.
oh no, don't
it's
say
it's
that.
like a joke for five people.
I forgot all about it
Yeah,
because it was
basically,
so asinine.
I was going to say for anyone who wants a good giggle, well, they should just message Adam Wessex and ask for his opinions on AEW and WWE's women's division and listen to him be wrong for the next 3 hours as he argues completely nothing with no facts. Anyway, this match was fucking spectacular. As Becky Lynch that picks up the win, obviously, with the big senton through the table. They built to the table spot. Slightly anticlimactic in many people's eyes, but overall, the match itself was world class. And for me, the real hinge of it was what the Japanese women and Dakota Kai
Oh,
were doing. I felt like Asuka and Io Sky's interactions were astonishing. I thought Io Sky was my MVP just for this match because everything she did was just that extra level of violent, crisp, high octane offense. Like I thought she looked fantastic in this match. And to be honest, I'm really sitting here thinking, is this the greatest women's gimmick match of all time?
I think if it's not, I think it would be top three for sure. I think you could argue it easily. I mean, sure, it didn't have Io Sky jumping off the top of Organs with a bin over her head, but
We can't have everything, can we, sadly?
no, I love this match. Rhea Ripley was a monster. She's doing like pull-ups in the cage, like
Oh,
before the match even started. I'm like, okay, ma'am, like just take a second.
the sex appeal in this match was obscene as well. Like it was just, I mean, yeah, no, it had something for everybody. Speaking of EO Sky coming off the top as well, EO Sky with the moonsault off the top of the
Oh,
cage. So yeah, that's a
love me a good
brave
moonsault.
woman. Yeah, even the men didn't do that. Crazy, crazy woman. Yeah, an incredible match. Do you think the right team won, and do you think the right person got the win in Becky Lynch?
I mean, she came back on Friday after having, I guess, a small injury just before SummerSlam, so it's gets the man back. Everyone was excited to see Becky Lynch. Like, I'm excited. I don't think she's gonna, you know, I don't think she'll be right back in the title picture. She's a face now. Bianca's a face, so they won't have to throw it out immediately. I think her and Bailey could have some good matches, maybe. But I mean, honestly, I don't think it really mattered which team won. The both teams looked great. I don't think the heels lose anything in defeat.
Yeah, yeah, like yeah. No, I don't feel. I must admit, I had damage control down for the win simply because they've kind of jobbed out quite a lot in terms of singles matches. I know the women's tag team titles have been predominantly on Dakota Kai and Io Sky, but for me, I thought, oh, maybe this is going to be kind of Bailey's big upset win. But then as soon as Becky Lynch is on that team, you kind of feel like, well, she's not going to job out. She was last in the match. They kind of protected her quite a bit. She I wouldn't say she did a minimal amount. She did a fair amount when she got in, but obviously being last, it's a bit skewed, isn't it? Obviously, there was a build up to it. But the match went almost 40 minutes, but I didn't feel like it was a
No.
40-minute match. It did not drag on. It was high octane. Me personally, I actually thought it was the better of the two matches. Not in terms of storytelling, but in terms of actual content and shit. Because when I watch a match like this, yes, I want to see great storytelling. That's what the men did incredibly well. But the women just went for the full-on car crash physicality. Bianca Belair again proving to everyone that she is the best women's wrestler in the world. It's not even close at the moment, in my opinion. Like her power, her strength, her credibility and the way she delivered her offense, everything just flowed beautifully. It never ever stopped. It had you on the edge of your seat from start to finish.
Yeah, it was great fun. The men definitely had a lot to follow up to at the end of the night.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on the women's War Games match, mate?
I mean, are we gonna see Bianca and Bailey again? Like we've seen it twice.
Potentially. You'd think I
Bianca's
think
won both times.
Bailey versus Becky Lynch makes sense, I think, to ease Becky Lynch back in. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, is Becky Lynch going to be the one to get sacrificed in that? No, Bailey rather is going to be sacrificed to Becky Lynch. I'm not entirely sure. It's interesting. Obviously, Bianca Belair. I mean, do we get another rematch with Becky Lynch later down the line? Do we have Rhea Ripley ascend to, the true dominance of that position? When's Beth Phoenix going to come back and probably get her revenge? But she was the one that I thought might be on Bianca Belair's team because I thought it made better sense from a storyline perspective. But then Becky Lynch was also dispatched by Damage Control. So Raw tomorrow night is going to be quite an interesting watch because you've got a lot of different elements going on. And also you've got a lot of fallout from what happened at Survivor Series, including new champions. Who do you think should face Bianca Belair and ultimately dethrone her for the title?
I think next challenger should definitely be Rhea Ripley. I think we need someone new. I love Bailey. I was so happy when she came back, but she's had a couple matches with Bianca now, especially the last woman standing match. She already lost decisively. So I think we need to move on from that. And I mean, I think Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair could have some bangers.
Yeah, I can't help but feel like they might be slowly working their way back towards Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch just because it's got the marquee value for WrestleMania. It's the one that is probably going to make the most sense from a monetary aspect. I think Rhea Ripley has all the tools to be the star of the women's division. But in some ways, even though I'm enjoying the Judgment Day a lot more, I do feel like it's still somewhat an anchor towards her, even though she's kind of like the divisive element. I thought Mia Yim did quite well in this match, but again, she still felt a little bit in the background compared to all the other women. Maybe that's just because she's only been on the show for a few weeks. She only came back recently with the OC, but she looked amazing. She worked really well, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like Mia Yim kind of belongs in that prominent mid-card position. She doesn't feel like a big main event women's star, considering how we look at Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bailey, Bianca Belair, even Liv Morgan and Ronda Rousey. They all feel like bigger stars with bigger upsides.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could build her up, but I don't think she doesn't. You're right. She doesn't feel like she's on that next level just yet. I mean, maybe if we actually get a 8-man tag between the OC with her and then the Judgment Day, I think that could be good. They might do that at what's next, TLC maybe. I don't know what the hell next pay-per-view is. They change it every year.
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really care for those sort of middling pay-per-views, especially the one in December. It's like it's the death spot, isn't it? Because you've got the Royal Rumble in January, and then obviously you've just had Survivor Series, probably the best Survivor Series we've had for a while. Do you think this was a better Survivor Series format, and they should stick with War Games over the whole brands of the brands?
Oh God, I don't give a shit about brand supremacy, man. I don't care. I went to Survivor Series 2016, and that was the first Survivor Series after the brand split. And they're like, "Oh no, rivalries on the show don't matter. Gotta prove what's better, a blue shirt or a red shirt." I'm like, guys, red shirt. All red shirts are nameless, and they die if you go on the away mission. Like, don't be a red shirt. Maybe like
Lovely Star
4
Trek
people will.
reference.
I'd say maybe 4
Yeah.
people will get that before the explanation.
Anything
But
sci-fi related, I'm very happy with.
But yeah, like I don't care. I think War Games every year, because it would only be once a year. It would be at Survivor Series, and I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I think this is the place for it. This is the new, fresh gimmick match. It feels exciting. It feels new to a lot of mainstream fans, especially the ones who haven't tuned into NXT. For me, Yeah, no, it just works really well. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's so ironic as well because I'm speaking to obviously our only Canadian co-host, and Canada have just arrived off the team bus to face, I believe, Croatia in the World Cup. Come on, you mighty Maple Leafs! It's going to be fantastic. Yeah, no. Strangely enough, whatever match was going to follow this was going to be in the death spot because the crowd was so ramped up that they were inevitably going to have to come down a bit because they weren't going to follow up with another War Games. That was obviously going to be the main event. And we had the grudge match in some ways of Finn Balor with the Judgment Day and, of course, AJ Styles backed up by the OC. How did this match work out for you? And also, do you think it lived up to the hype of the last time they wrestled each other? Do you remember the infamous pay-per-view where everyone was ill and they drafted in AJ Styles and Finn Balor last minute? I think AJ Styles was the last minute guy. He flew in from Mexico to face Finn Balor and actually ended up being like an indie-tastic New Japan-esque match. For me, they went more of a storyline aspect, more of a sports entertainment aspect, but it was still excellent. But how did it sort of sit with you? Did you feel like it was difficult to be excited about a match like this after you've just seen arguably one of the greatest women's gimmick matches of all time?
It definitely, it didn't feel like it jumped into like that final gear. Like the two of them are incredible in ring performers. I don't think anyone can dispute that. The last match, ironically, I think it was TLC 2017.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
think
guys could check me if I'm. It was TLC for sure. I just don't.
Yeah, the main event
remember
of that show, I'm pretty sure, was the Shield with Kurt Angle, wasn't it? Against fucking Braun Strowman, The Miz, and all these random people.
Oh, the bar Strowman.
Yeah.
It was stupid. We all hated that.
Yeah.
But no, I thought the match was great. You get to see a brawl between the OC and the Judgment Day. Every time I see Dominic get the shit kicked out of him by Carl Anderson, I love it because Carl Anderson's great. Luke Gallows, good to see him back.
The never open weight champion, Carl Anderson.
Yeah. I mean, AJ got the win, which I saw online is apparently his first pay-per-view win in like his last 11.
That's amazing, that stat. Wow. He really has been doing the job, hasn't he, for a lot of people, putting everyone else over. But AJ Styles picking up. I mean, it's a weird one because I felt like each guy badly needed the win, but at least Finn Balor has been more prominent and, won the I Quit match, which kind of helped elevate him a little bit. But it just always feels like it's not 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's 1 step forward, 1 step back. Every time Finn Balor pushes himself towards a more prominent position, he then takes a step back again. And you always feel like, is this guy always going to be kind of like the bridesmaids? That's kind of how it feels with him, even though he's putting on great matches. I love the new gear. I love the new look. I really like the mask as well. I know it was very basic, just this sort of plain black mask, but it had a very kind of ominous feel to it. And obviously having the Judgment Day, the music, all the setup, the production values, like he feels like he's found his mark on the main roster a lot more. But that being said, he's still lost. Do you think AJ Styles needs to now push on towards more main event level stuff, maybe chasing after, the United States title, which is being put in the prominent title role on Raw?
Oh, I think AJ and the United States champion could have some great matches right now. I mean, I'm AJ is my favorite wrestler of all time. I'd love to see him challenging Roman. I don't think we've actually seen that since he first debuted back in 2016 when Roman won the title at Mania 32. Yeah, because let's all remember WrestleMania 32 for a second, guys. Hats off. But he hasn't had a shot at the championship since I think he lost it to Daniel Bryan way back when.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good job of removing him, haven't they, from the heavyweight title scene? What does Finn Balor do now, do you think, with Judgment Day? Do you think it's on to Edge again?
Yeah, Edge is going to have to come back sooner or later. Probably. I don't want Edge to come back at the Rumble again for the third year, like third of 4 years. I think we're already getting Cody at the Rumble, so I don't think we need another big surprise like Edge.
I think Cody's the man to win the Rumble as well.
I think so, yeah.
I think that makes sense. He's the only one who looks strong enough. The only downside to Cody coming back and winning the Rumble is obviously where it's been quite a while, hasn't it? Since Hell in a Cell, I think was the last time we saw him. He had that incredible match with Seth Rollins. To be able to wrestle with, that extreme pectoral injury was just that to me proves something about Cody Rhodes, that You know, a lot of people might have been like, well, he's gone from AEW because, you know, he couldn't handle it there or whatever, or AEW released him because he was too much of a sports entertainer and not enough of an indie-rific wrestler, whatever you want to look at it as. The bottom line is that he gained worldwide respect for being able to put on a match of that quality with an injury that frankly would have most people bedridden for months, you know, and then he goes away, gets his rehab, he's going to fix this injury, he's going to be back soon. Like you say, you've got to feel that he's going to be back very, very soon, hopefully at the Rumble. As far as Edge goes, Edge coming back on Raw tomorrow night would probably be, for me, the best place for him. You know,
Oh, yeah,
Finn
I can
Balor
see that.
comes out, has a whinge, has a cry, says he's furious, whatever. You know, things need to change. Edge comes down, and then obviously we could maybe build to Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley versus Edge and Beth Phoenix, because there's just, you know, perfect measure there, even though it doesn't always work as well with an intergender contest. We've seen a lot of Rhea Ripley getting involved with the men. She body slammed Luke Gallows on Raw, so I feel like there's probably more scope for a better intergender match there. And obviously, Beth Phoenix is still in amazing condition, and Rhea Ripley, in some ways, is kind of like the evolution of what Beth Phoenix was
For
when she
sure.
was in WWE. So there's a lot of intrigue there, and I think that's a good spot for both of them. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you can have Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley go over in that, as much as that might upset the fans a bit. I just don't feel like Finn Balor can continuously keep taking losses. Otherwise, the Judgment Day is going to fall back down the card, and they've made a good position for themselves on Raw. So we shall see. Any final thoughts on the
I mean,
indie contest? It's very rare that people kind of are sleeping on Finn Balor versus AJ Styles.
I mean, I the match was fine. I think maybe, have that mixed tag match, maybe give Finn the whole Judgment Day a good run in the Rumble, have them dominate like the middle portion of it or something, give Finn the Iron Man spot or something, just to kind of build him up a little more. But I mean, I like the Judgment Day, I guess. Still rocking with that Alter Bridge music, which is always a good sign because they're great. But if you keep losing, it's like the Wyatt family back in the day. Bray could talk all the shit, and they just kept losing. So
Yeah, like people say wins and losses don't matter, but they actually do. That's because, you know, we're supposed to suspend our disbelief and believe that this is actual competition, and the bottom line in competition is who wins, who loses. Nobody remembers the silver medalist, nobody remembers, you know, the World Cup runner up or whatever it might be. So why should we remember the people, or why should we care about the people as much who lose all the time, even if they're supposed to be credible main eventers? You know, there was a reason that Austin, The Rock, The Undertaker, when they lost, it meant something. It wasn't just a throwaway match on Raw. And that's one of the things that's changed, I think, a lot about wrestling in the modern age, is that all of a sudden wins and losses, they don't treat them as well. The era of 50-50 booking still lingers around, and it's something that, admittedly, I feel like they're getting away from it a lot more, which is nice. You know, we've seen, like, for instance, Bianca Belair, who, despite having incredibly competitive matches with Bayley, has still been predominantly winning the majority of those matches. And yet Bayley has still looked strong, proving that 50-50 booking isn't necessarily the be all and end all, and not, shouldn't really be considered a thing in this modern age. But until it's been completely eradicated, and until you retune your fans' minds to accept that, oh, that's not a thing anymore, and people legitimately are winning because they're better and not just because, oh, so and so won the first, so you've got to win the second, you know, people are always going to be a little bit skeptical. Speaking of skepticism, Ronda Rousey successfully defended the women's title against Shotzi Blackheart in what has to be a very woefully mid, like, it was literally in the middle of the card, and there was not a more mid match on the card. Unfortunately, it was 7 minutes. It was the shortest match of the night, so it wasn't painful to watch or anything. But again, I stand by my opinions. I don't think Shotzi Blackheart is even close to looking on the same level, main event wise, as other women in these. Even Liv Morgan, who's elevated herself since her women's title run and feels like a more credible threat, I don't feel like she's even close to that. And I think that she needed more time, months and months of building on TV before she was even close to ready to face someone like Ronda Rousey, especially when you got Raquel Rodriguez, who is a credible threat, who probably could have put up a better match and a better fight against someone like Ronda Rousey. Instead, it just felt inevitable from the get-go. And the match itself, I mean, I think we were busy arguing, you know, ridiculous points from ridiculous people more so than we were paying attention to this. But Ronda
yeah,
Rousey taps out Shotzi Blackheart in a pretty underwhelming affair.
I honestly can't recall any spot from that match at all.
Should have been on SmackDown, really.
It
Like,
it,
you
wa-
know,
it wasn't even a SmackDown main event, man. This was like,
open.
SmackDown's 8 to 10. I'd put it on at like, you know, 8:30. Like it was just kind of there. I like Shotzi. I think she's a lot of fun, but just she was so out of place.
You know what I would have done? I would have put Volta and Rey Mysterio in this spot instead of using it on SmackDown. I know they want to make the IC title a really prominent belt on SmackDown because obviously the Universal Championship isn't going to be defended that often and it wasn't going to be defended in the main. But, I've got no problem with more women's matches. And I think it's good that they had 2 women's matches. But the other one was so prominent. You had 10 women in it, all megastars, all feel like main eventers could be champions. So then you had Ronda Rousey essentially beating up the really hot alternative girl that nobody really believes has a chance in the first place, especially when you've got Shayna Baszler at ringside as well, which just makes the odds way too OTT in her favor as it is. And she's already massively the favorite because she's an MMA fucking extraordinaire. Is Ronda Rousey working as SmackDown Women's Champion for you?
I mean, I guess I'm not as invested in her now as I was during her first run. It just something seems off. Her and Shayna Baszler just seem really awkward.
They
Like,
feel like somebody's dropped a couple of MMA fighters in, which is what they are, but they've had no experience of what it is to be sports entertainers. That's what they look like, which is surprising because Shayna Baszler really excelled in NXT and then had a great little initial run on the main roster, winning that Elimination Chamber, getting towards WrestleMania. And ever since she lost to Becky Lynch, admittedly in the pandemic era, it just kind of feels like we've forgotten what she's capable of. And she's gone back to being a real low end, she's a lackey for lack of a better term. And I've got to be honest, I love Ronda Rousey. I think as a human being, she's wonderful as well. I think she's a lovely woman. She's beautiful. She's an incredible mother. It's funny how we celebrate Becky Lynch to the ends of the earth for being a mother, but with Ronda Rousey, it's like, well, because she might have some questionable opinions or tweets, all of a sudden she's a scumbag. And it's like, well, no, she's still doing incredible things. I don't think at any point we should understate how incredible it is for a woman to give birth and then months later return immediately and wrestle. And for Ronda Rousey to do that is just as impressive as Becky Lynch. But I've got to be honest, this title fit up, it almost feels like a mistake that they took it off of Liv Morgan, especially putting it on Ronda Rousey. She doesn't feel like they're not treating her like an attraction, in my opinion. It feels like Ronda Rousey's being treated as here's another great women's wrestler. All of a sudden, she's no longer, the baddest woman on the planet. She's no longer this MMA extraordinaire, this high profile celebrity that millions of people paid to watch beat the shit out of women in real life. Now, all of a sudden, she's just, that's she almost like a bit like a women's Ken Shamrock, where we've taken what makes her so special and we've kind of dulled that down, put some shitty makeup on her. Love her ring gear, love the Roddy Piper stuff, obviously, because he was my favorite heel of all time. But it feels very disjointed, and her match quality isn't fantastic at the moment. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Shotzi Blackheart's not going to get a good match out of Ronda Rousey. Shayna Baszler probably would have. Raquel Rodriguez probably would. Even Natalia, you can trust her to at least go in there, although she's mundane. You can trust her to go in there and have a good technical match with somebody because she's a very good worker. Even Liv Morgan, there's the upside of, can she overcome Ronda Rousey again and not just beat her with a fluke cash in? With Shotzi Blackheart, at no point did I think she was even going to get close. She looked so out of her depth. And yeah, it's nice that she got an opportunity. But, the hypocrisy of wrestling fans kicks in here as well. How many times do they say, oh, I want to see someone new get an opportunity? Well, this is why you don't do this as much. And this is why they go with the tried and tested and build the other talents until they feel like they're ready. Because when you throw them in the deep end like this, they don't look that great. And for me, Shotzi Blackheart is very underwhelming, and I dread to think how less over she'd be if she didn't have a tank.
it was a very sink or swim scenario, and unfortunately, she sank.
Speaking of sinking or swimming, a man who has decided all of a sudden that it's time to swim is the all-day star that is, of course, Austin Theory. He has just become something else, like very polarizing. He's gone through months and months and months of what feels like burials. He unsuccessfully cashed in on the United States title, and yet here he is recapturing the gold in a triple threat against Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins, who for many is kind of the MVP of Raw, the main guy on Raw. Now, all of a sudden, if we're saying that the United States title is kind of their version of the heavyweight title, all of a sudden Austin Theory now feels like a big fucking deal. And the turnaround has been completed in what, a month? That's pretty impressive.
Oh, when I first saw the cash in on the US title, I'm like, okay, it's definitely odd, but it's the first time we've seen it on the mid card championship, sure. And then he lost. I'm like, okay, that's unfortunate, but I knew he was a pet project of Vince. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe just you got to give it time to breathe. And most people are like, no, instant burial. This guy's dead. Get rid of him now. It's like, no, guys, just give it a second. And the very next week, he was murking kids, like left and right. This kid is, yeah, kid, because he's like 24, 25. He's
Everyone's a kid compared to us, isn't they?
Yeah, fucking Christ. But he's on a whole other level now. He did not seem out of place in this match at all. I think, oh, he's so good now, man. I'm so excited to see what his future holds now. Now as what, two-time US champ?
Yeah, there feels like all of a sudden he just feels like a main event player again, like in the sense of that it's been done right. It's fun, like you say, a lot of people were very kind of indifferent towards the idea of him when he was Vince McMahon's protege. And that for me didn't work because it's that thing of, well, even though it's a storyline, we know that backstage Vince McMahon's very hot on you. So you're just going to be shots in. So all of a sudden he was just over pushed like mad and he was oversaturated. It's a mistake they've made countless times with John Cena, with Roman Reigns. They do this all the time with people that they rush, they panic, and they think this guy's got to be the big star now, get him in there, and it kind of faltered a bit. And what's great about Austin Theory is also, if you're paying attention to the little things, the nuances, when he's on Raw, for instance, and he does these promos after he lost the cash in, and he's saying that was an albatross around my neck. It's a hint at the booking as well. It's that thing of like, I was supposed to be Vince McMahon's golden love child or whatever. Like, I was always doomed to failure in real life and on the product. And now all of a sudden he's just become fucking angry and ruthless and aggressive. And he's like, I actually don't have anything to lose now, which makes me more dangerous than ever. That old adage of the man who is most dangerous is the one who has nothing to lose. And he comes right into Boston to the TD Garden, the Survivor Series, and he captures the belt. And he keeps the heel gimmick while also still looking quite credible. Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins did a great job of making sure that he looked great as well. I quite enjoyed the double hurt lock spot. I know a lot of people have been shitting on it because obviously
I was fine.
Because Austin Theory's like, looks like he's doing the fucking mimes. Yeah. But the bottom line is that there was plenty of really cool spots in here, great power spots. Bobby Lashley with the stalling suplex and the spears, and Seth Rollins. I thought the spot where he leapfrogged off of Theory's back to give the curb stomp to Bobby
Called
Lashley.
that, by the way. I fucking called that, by the way.
You did. You absolutely called it. Like, yeah, no, it was beautiful. Like, you were very much on the money with a lot of your calls in the night. Yeah, no, I just think that overall, it was very successful and it was mission accomplished. This match wasn't meant to be, well, I mean, obviously up to the guys. I thought they had a great match. I didn't think it was a 5-star match, but it was definitely a really great, solid 3.5, 4-star US title match. It's a good match. It's going to be lost in the shuffle a little bit, obviously, because it's sandwiched between War Games like everything else. But yeah, no, I think the right guy won, actually. And I think the booking was good. And now all of a sudden, we're watching Raw thinking, hold up, Austin Theory's now the man. Does Seth Rollins, what does Seth Rollins do? Because he's kind of been the prominent guy. He's stupidly over, even though he's still portraying somewhat of a heel, somewhat of a face, depending on how you look at him. He's very much a tweener now. Bobby Lashley is a tweener, but predominantly considered a heel just because he's a big, meaty fucking destroyer. But the great thing about this is Bobby Lashley doesn't have to worry because he's probably going to have Brock Lesnar back in the fold, isn't he, at some point after he destroyed him in Saudi Arabia, even though he lost the match. Oh, by the way, Canada have just scored after a
I know. I'm watching. It was 75 seconds in. Let's go.
Come on! Yes. Oh, I'm so fucking happy right now, honestly. I fucking love this team.
Oh, what a cross. Oh, what a header.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It could not be more beautifully timed with our Canadian co-host as well. Fuck you, Croatia. Fantastic stuff. Brilliant. Lovely. Lovely
uh,
to see. But yeah, no,
that
much like Canada taking the lead against Croatia, Austin Theory comes good when it matters most and captures the United States Championship. Looking forward to seeing what he does on Raw. And that, of course, leads to the main event where it looked like Team Canada had returned for a moment, albeit with a Samoan touch about it. The red and white destroyers, the all red and white of the bloodline, facing the Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre, and Canada's own Kevin Owens. We've got a lot of Canadian inspiration going on this weekend.
right.
This was the match that opted for the storytelling more than the shock spots and crazy spot value. Like, there was plenty of hardcore elements, plenty of bins and chairs and tables and clusterfucky, but I didn't actually feel like the wrestling was magnificent. I felt it was a bit disjointed in places. The spots themselves were incredible and they were so well done, but the stuff in between all felt very kind of middling or completely sort of non-eventful. Like, it was like, okay, that's cool. Don't really care. That's okay, that's nice. He's gone for a chair or he's gone for a table. Okay, he's fallen off, whatever. But then when they did the storytelling elements, it's hard to get away from the fact that Sami Zayn is the most over wrestler in the world.
It's
And
unbelievable.
it's astonishing, really, the turnaround. He's gone from being I mean, what was it, 6 months, a year ago, when he's been lobbed out of a wheelchair or being beaten up by fucking Brock Lesnar, and everyone's like, ha, look at the little bitch. And he's been patient and he's waited and he's been rewarded by being so fucking incredible at entertaining. He is infinitely better than pretty much anything else in all of wrestling right now. And the fact that he's aligned himself with, if anything, it just makes Roman Reigns look even better as well, because he's in that kind of bracket. He's in that shine. He's got Sami Zayn over here, and he's got Jey Uso over here. He's got Paul Heyman over here. He's got Solo Sikoa building himself as this incredible power. And then, Jimmy Uso, it all fucking works. It all clicks. This is the perfect storm of what a wrestling angle should be. And it's mission accomplished again. I thought there was going to be a turn on Jey Uso, and the bottom line is Sami Zayn low blows Kevin Owens, betrays him, even though they were teasing him, aligning with him, or Kevin Owens luring him away from the dark side. He eventually turns, low blows him, and allows Jey, offers him up as a sacrifice, says, go on, Jey, this is your moment. And main event Jey Uso with the big splash and the win for the bloodline. And to be honest, I don't feel like at any point the Brawling Brutes or Drew McIntyre or even Kevin Owens feel weaker from this. If anything, we can now build them more based on what they're going to be doing after the fact. Did this tick all the boxes for you?
The biggest memory I'm gonna have of this match is just the shot of, KO hits the starter, he's got Roman down, he gets the 2, and then Sami just dives on the ref and just stops his arm before he hits the mat for the 3, and him and KO are just staring at each other. That hit me in places I didn't know wrestling could hit me.
A masterpiece.
Broke my Canadian heart. And then, gets up, punches him in the dick, hits a haluva kick, and then catches him, which I thought was another beautiful piece, because I think they've done that before, just roles reversed.
Yeah, he kicked him square in the face as well.
Oh.
Like, it was one of the stiffest ones, and I loved it because it meant more, because it looked more, like it looked like a real shot across the bow of, I'm sick of you. I'm so sick of you. For years and years, you just keep getting in my fucking way. And normally, more often than not, it's Kevin Owens, isn't it, who comes out as the upper hand in this rivalry. And now all of a sudden, he feels like the weak point. He feels like the weaker of the two. Sami Zayn has, he picked the right side. Sami Zayn aligned himself with the right people, and Kevin Owens didn't. And all of these little storytelling aspects are in there. It's very rare that I watch a Roman Reigns match where he's kind of in the background for the majority of it.
Yeah, for this one, he came in very last because the faces had the advantage, which is always a little weird in war games, because you think, oh, you give the heels the advantage, the good guys have to build it up. But no, Roman just, there was a chair in their cage, and he was just sitting in it, just directing traffic like a mob boss. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I liked it as well when, obviously, because Jey Uso starts. Jey Uso, for me, was the MVP of the match in terms of work rate. You can't deny that. He was incredible. I think it's amazing. I mean, Jay Miller's underrated wrestler of the year after he'd wrestled Roman Reigns inside Hell in a Cell. So that's a bit ridiculous in its own right. But then that's the man who also said that Sandman was a good technical wrestler. So I'm not taking that game seriously. Oh, and by the way, you didn't live up to your fucking bet and down in brown sauce like I did on the podcast. So fuck you, sir. He's a fucking melt, is what he is. Wetty, as we like to say. But for me, there are so many guys like Ridge Holland really putting a shift. I know I mentioned this quite a lot during the watch long, but this is a guy who a year ago looked like he could barely wrestle properly. This is a guy who was involved in high profile botches, got himself injured on NXT, injured Big E in a horrendous, albeit accident, but still it's an injury, still it's sloppiness. And now all of a sudden he's looking like a crisp, strong, old school brawling brute, which is what he is. He's part of that faction and he fits in there nicely. And, Pete Dunne obviously is Butch. I've got to that point now where I actually like Butch enough that I don't miss Pete Dunne. I feel like Butch now has the credibility. The fact that he started War Games and was still in there at the end, scrapping away like a maniac. He's the true workhorse. He's almost taken that position of a Daniel Bryan since he's left, where it's like, right, this is the guy we can trust to go in there and have a world-class match every time. He doesn't have bad performances. Pete Dunne's one of the best professional wrestlers I've ever seen in my entire life. I've got to be honest. I feel like the only people who really kind of felt like they were in the background were Jimmy for quite a while and Roman. Even Solo comes in as the destroyer. Felt like Drew McIntyre, although he looks incredible, he just feels kind of like the bridesmaid again, doesn't he? It just feels like he's not going to get back to it. They did a great job of building him back up. He was amazing at Clash at the Castle, which I was obviously at. But then it's gone back a little bit, but he still feels prominent. But nobody felt weak coming out of this. It's just that when you've got 10 men inside 2 cages and 2 wrestling rings, somebody's not going to get in as much of their shit as they would like. And ultimately, there are a couple of guys there. But the storytelling aspect was perfect. How does the War Games experience match up for you? Did you feel like this was the match of the night?
No, I still think the women's was better. But okay, that's not necessarily fair because it depends on what you're looking for. If you want just clear in-ring stuff, I think the women's was better. But if you want something to pull at your heartstrings and make you cry a little, you'll watch the men's.
Yeah. Yeah, one
So
was
it's
one was very favorable for all the hardcore indie fans, and one was very favorable for the hardcore entertainment fans. And that's something that WWE are doing really well. There are only 5 matches on this card. Each one had a different variety to it. We had 2 War Games matches with very different premises and very different styles. We then had the world-class purists match, Finn Balor and AJ Styles. We had a women's title match, which admittedly fell very short of the mark, but it's still different. It's still variety. And then we had this incredible triple threat for the United States title, which told a different story about who's going to be the next. For me, that was a fight to determine who was going to be the man on Raw going forward. Who's going to be our marquee star? Who's going to be on the banner? Who's going to be on the side of the buses? Who's going to be the guy selling merch? And it's kind of almost like we've anointed Austin Theory as you're the next guy. Here's the belt that we consider the biggest belt away from the Universal title. It's the only thing we've really got, and we've elevated it so well for you. So now it's your opportunity to show. And he has all the tools to be like John Cena, like Roman Reigns, the big marquee star. And you could argue out of the 3 of those guys we mentioned, Austin Theory is by far and away the best worker as well. And that's something that's going to be very exciting to see because A-Town Down is having incredible high-end matches wherever he goes and whoever he wrestles, even in throwaway things like Shelton Benjamin on Raw. So now it's a case of let's build that stock, let's build that value, let's make him feel like the big main event star that he truly should be. And it's going to be done the right way and not just shoehorned in by some old racist cretin like Vince McMahon. It's going to be done the right way with Triple H and the gang. And I have more faith that WWE will do well by the overall product. And it's hard to deny the momentum that WWE is building. Everything seems to click so well. The storylines are great. There's just more and more great content. Sometimes Raw can still be a bit hit and miss. SmackDown for me has been predominantly excellent. I think SmackDown is my my wrestling show of the year out of all of them. I think Raw still has a lot to catch up with, but it's definitely improved no end since Vince McMahon went. Is that enough for it to topple something like Dynamite or even NXT? We'll find out. I would argue that maybe NXT, because of the drop off in what they've been doing, is possibly the worst for me. Not because it's horrible, but just because it just doesn't click and it doesn't work for me. But how was Survivor Series overall for you, mate? Do you feel like WWE is in the number one position right now? WWE is the place to watch the best wrestling and the best content.
Yeah, I mean, Triple H is like, we all know what like the golden era of NXT was like, from 2015 to 2018 kind of thing. Like that was the best place to watch wrestling, hands
Yeah.
down. And now he's on the main roster, dude, taking control of that. The road to WrestleMania starts in 2 months. I'm so excited to see, just from this pay-per-view, because this is his first, I guess the second of the big four, because he did SummerSlam, which was also good. I'm excited to see what he does going into his first WrestleMania, because he's got some of the best talent in the world, and he's the storytelling. I mean, can you see, like, could you imagine if Sami is the one to face Roman at Mania? Like,
You don't
I
think it's
would
going
love
to
to
be The
see
Rock
Sami.
anymore? You think they've given up on the idea of The Rock at Hollywood?
I mean, I don't care. Like, I love The Rock, but I don't care for that personally.
You,
Like, I don't.
would you lose your shit though if
Oh, absolutely,
If
100%.
The
Yeah.
Rock's about to beat Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn costs The Rock the Universal title?
Oh, I'd lose my mind.
Yeah. That's where the real money's at, I think. Sami Zayn, haluva kicking The Rock. Like, holy shit. That's when you're anointed as a megastar to end all megastars.
Kicking his head right back to Kondak, That's a Black
Yeah.
Adam reference for all those people that might not get it. You're
I
welcome.
haven't seen Black Adam yet. I
Me
do
neither.
need to, but...
I haven't even seen the second Black Panther yet, which just came out last weekend or 2 weeks
Oh yeah,
ago now.
Wakanda Forever, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of out of the loop when it comes to pop culture. When the World Cup's on, everything else falls by the wayside other than my work. That's it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, no, I feel like WWE's fucking great. Every pay-per-view for the last few months has been fucking spot on. I feel like SummerSlam onwards, they have just kicked into gear and they're like, let's fucking give them what they fucking want, but let's do it right. Let's build it right. Everything's going well. Like you said, with Austin Theory, fucking patience. And now our patience is being rewarded. Bray Wyatt with the slow burn, and he wasn't even part of this show at all, So we've still got this intrigue of what he's going to be doing going forward with the Uncle Howdy stuff, with the Sister Abigail stuff. There's a lot going on, and there's so much to unpack. And it's nice that you see the prominent stars every week, but unlike a lot of other places, they don't just spunk all the stuff immediately at you. They're like, yeah, you can see Bray Wyatt every week, but we're just going to give you a little bit of an inkling. We're going to give you a little bit of a taste, a few crumbs of excellence. And the same with things like Austin Theory. It's like, no. He's going to drop it, and everyone's going to, oh, what a clusterfuck. That's terrible, blah, blah. The idea is that you feel that way, so that when it comes back round and he redeems himself by winning the US title like he did last night at Survivor Series, you then think, that's why they did what they did. There is always method to WWE's madness, but it feels like the method and the madness are so much more exciting when they're under the tuition and the guidance of Triple H more so than Vince McMahon. And to be honest, I was one of those people. I'm wrong. I said I didn't believe that Triple H would make that much of a difference because Stephanie McMahon would always be there. And I felt like there would always be that, that imprint of what Vince was trying to do. But actually, he's taken it in an entirely new direction. It's more edgy. The promos feel much harsher and much more aggressive. Everything's just going well. And there's also great funny moments and great corpsing moments, like Sami corpsing the fucking bloodline every week. Like
every day.
Every day there's something else where he's just triggering someone, and poor Jey Uso's desperately trying to be angry and hate him, and then at times he's just pissing his pants laughing. And it's lovely because you can see that the wrestlers themselves, I've always said this since we started doing this podcast, wrestling for me is, I'm most happy when I know that the wrestlers themselves are enjoying what they're doing as well. And that's how it feels at the moment. I'm watching these guys, and they all look like they're having and the women as well, and they all look like having a great time, and they're enjoying what they're doing. From Nikki Cross hanging around in the outskirts and hiding behind the back of the cage or whatever, or sitting in a random locker while everyone else is watching TV. The little things like Sami Zayn saying that Jay's not feeling Usi, or Austin Theory yelling about not being a kid anymore. It all feels like they're enjoying what they're doing and they're having fun. And even if you go on social media and you watch some of like the up, down stuff, and everyone just seems to be happier. There seems to be a real togetherness and a unity and a unification of what wrestling should be. And that's something that I'm really enjoying. And ironically enough, one of the reasons that I haven't enjoyed AEW as much is because there has been a lot of that disjointed attitude and egos getting in the way of the product. And that makes it harder for me to enjoy it because I know that a lot of the wrestlers don't look like they're enjoying themselves as much or just aren't focused on the product as much because they got to deal with some idiot's horseshit backstage. There isn't any of that in WWE, and that's a real surprise. If there's one thing you never thought you'd say at the beginning of the year, it's that WWE seems to have a really good, sound, content locker room with great spirituality, and yet they do.
It's miracles do happen, man. I'm not religious, but hot damn, do miracles happen?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Yeah, no, it was great, mate. Any final thoughts on it?
No, I'm just gonna. We had like what 8 people watching it together
Yeah,
at
we
one
had 7
point.
or 8. The biggest watch along we've ever had. You know, we went live on Zoom. And by the way, for anyone listening, if you're thinking, cool, I want a piece of that, why wasn't I invited? Please message at WrestlePlug and join us. There was so many of us in there. There was heated debates. I give Adam Wessex a lot of shit, but you know what I love? I love the fact that at least he sticks to his fucking guns. I love the fact that he will present a different argument. I mean, he's fucking wrong by some margin, but that doesn't change the fact that, you know, it's good that we have such heated debates, but we all still love each other afterwards, except for obviously, you know, Cameron Anderson, he can stop my dick. But no, I'm joking. He's lovely.
He's a young man, and it was way past his bedtime. All right,
It was, yeah, he was fucked. Bless him.
the boy needs his 8 hours of beauty sleep.
You know what? We give Tanvir a lot of shit, but he stuck it out to the very end as well. Like,
My man.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was great. Thank you to everyone who joined us. We've now instigated games night with WrestlePlug as well. You're all welcome to join. We're going to be doing, I think it's Jackbox. I'm not as clued up, but you know, our good buddy Ajax is going to be helping us out. And yeah, no, it just feels like WrestlePlug's going in a great direction, and it's great timing because all the wrestling seems to be going well. It's a good time again to be a wrestling fan, and it feels prominent. I'm sure someone will ruin it for us in the next few weeks. That's just the way it is. Somebody's going to do something.
They always do. Someone has to.
Yeah. But in the moment, it's lovely, lovely, lovely to enjoy. And more importantly, it's lovely that you're still fucking alive. Do not run away for 4 months because I'm sick and tired of people messaging me going, where's Kyle Wilkinson? Is he still alive? Has he quit? I get this every bloody week. So if you're feeling shit, come on the podcast and forget about it for an hour instead of hiding in your mum's basement, you sweaty melt.
Well, hey, hiding in this basement has helped me save up money so I can come see the boys at some point next year.
That's true. You do have a mad wedge of cash. You have done very, very well. So, and I am actually currently in a financial position where Canada is not really an excuse not to make anymore. Like I could easily get out there now. So we'll see how that goes. It's going to be a very prominent time. For anyone watching, if you want some more hot slices of WrestlePlug action, there's plenty of content on YouTube. More watch-alongs coming. Me and Tanvir just did a group of watch-alongs with Kyle Wilkinson back. I'm going to collar him.
To see Tanvir ones.
Yeah, we watched some terrible stuff, including Kaiju Big Battle. Which, Jesus.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, it's a real smorgasbord of crap. But it's entertaining because obviously it's all about the reactions there. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, WrestlePlug is an 18+ podcast. If you're offended by our content, go fuck yourself. But also, most importantly, you know, it's not for everyone, and ultimately you have a choice. So if you don't like it, don't watch it. Simple as that. I don't care. At the end of the day, these podcasts are here to entertain the masses, for people to have fun, to enjoy themselves, and to just enjoy wrestling and enjoy our opinions on wrestling. And I'm very proud of the fact that WrestlePlug is one of the very few completely unfiltered, unedited formats. So many podcasts are out there, and they do a great job. But it just feels like they're going by the numbers. And we're not going to do that here. We're going to do things with a bit of an edge, and we're going to continue to wind people up. But, ladies and gentlemen, I want to go and watch Canada fucking whip Croatia's ass. So you can all piss off now. Survivor Series was great. Kyle Wilkinson, thank you very much for joining me once again at the WrestlePlug. It's a pleasure to have you back, sir.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate the patience. And I'm also going to watch Canada destroy Croatia.
It's time
might even do it together. I don't know.
Yeah,
right. World Cup watch-alongs. Let's go.
World Cup watch-alongs are now live. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, with the Royal Rumble just a couple of months away, we will be doing our first ever WrestlePlug sweepstake. £2 or I think it's about $2.50. PayPal will translate it for you. We're going to put all the money in the pot. You get a random number. We'll do a fantastic live draw so everyone can have a bit of fun and take the piss out of me as I do it. And of course, if you win, you're going to get yourself a nice little payday. And what we might do is give a smaller payday to people who get to the final four. So there's a little bit more added incentive there instead of all or nothing. But yeah, the WrestlePlug sweepstake for the Royal Rumble will be live and ready to go. And if we get lots of interest, we might do a couple so that everyone can get involved. So we might have two, which will be a good giggle. And £2 for a laugh and engage in conversation, have fun with your friends. That seems like a good deal. We're not going to get any of that money, just the winner. So, it's all about fun here at the WrestlePlug and having a laugh. So, and also just very quickly, 3rd of December, which of course is this next coming Saturday. It is, of course, ACW at Parkstone Trades and Labour Club. I'll put up a QR code, excuse me. It's probably on the screen for the whole of this podcast. If you scan that, if you're in the Bournemouth Pool region, if you're in the South region, Southwest region of the United Kingdom, even the Southeast, to be fair, come along, check out some amazing wrestling. The show will be headlined by Ollie Blake, NXT UK standout, versus Scott Jones, the reigning and defending ACW heavyweight champion for the belt, with our good friend Adam Wessex in Ollie Blake's corner since his dastardly turn at the last show. Come and watch some great professional wrestling. £7.50 for a ticket. And I will update you with my whereabouts as we go along, because there's a lot more in the pipeline for Aeron Nix to design. But from myself, Aeron Nix, and from Kyle Wilkinson, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you very soon for more content from the WrestlePlug. Up the Croat, right up the Croat crevasse. You like that, pal? 1-0 Canada, baby.